Asperger Camp Rat. It says here he's been keeping fish for 45 years and is a specialist on African catfish in particular. In his spare time he has a job as a framer and also teaches karate. Berger, without any further ado, welcome. Oh, let's give him a big SAS welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay. All right, so can you hear me okay? Yeah.
Nice catfish.
So I'll be talking on Synodontis and some of their close relatives. This is Moncochielopanii, a photograph of mine. One of my favorite photos. What's that?
The mic's going in and out.
Something's wrong.
Hello?
It's dropping in and out.
Gotta talk to it, man.
Okay. How's this?
Can't hear it.
Dropped out again.
I got you. Just keep talking.
Okay, I'll keep talking. All right, so we're just going to keep going here. We're going to go through some of the different things, bioregions, some of the various sexing and feeding and tank mates and things like that of Synodontis. So we're going to start off with here at the Rift Lakes. Let's get this thing.
Your pointer doesn't work on the screen. It's reflecting.
Okay. Well, that's okay. I can do this. So in the Rift Lakes, everybody has the perception of you got your Rift Lake Synodontis, and then you've got everything else, and that's not really correct. So when you're talking Rift Lakes, we've got Lake Victoria, Lake Kivu, Lake Edward, all those little ones up there. They all flow northward towards the Nile River and drain out that way. You've got Lake Tanganyika, who drains, it's actually part of the Congo drainage. So it drains westward towards the Congo. And Lake Malawi here, it drains south through the river down at the bottom end here and into the Zambezi River. So they're all actually separate from each other. So you can't really group the Rift Lakes all together like that. Principal bioregions of Africa, you've got here that correspond with Synodontis. These are all the different ones. We'll go through each one and the different Synodontis that come from each area. There's 129 species of Synodontis. One accounts for Plethron, Brachysynodontis, Hemisynodontis, which, like in Europe, they consider those two to be Synodontis as well. I'll just say, if you guys have any questions, just go ahead and ask. Separate, kind of considered separate drainages, separate areas. They're separated by, most killifish keepers will understand the Dahomey Gap here. It separates the eastern area from the west area there. And the weather, when the weather comes in here, the weather comes in off the Atlantic, it hits the mountains here, so it drops and creates the rainforest here. And it scoots across here. There's some mountains here that's changed direction. And it's very dry and arid there in the Dahomey Gap. And that's what separates the Synodontis. It separates cichlids, it separates the killifish, all that sort of thing. And this is Cameroon and a couple different countries here. And it hits, and this is all ends up being rainforest into the Congo as well. Yep.
Drop the mic.
Okay. How's that?
There we go.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. So we'll start with the Upper Guinean bio area, the drainages. We've got some of the fish from there. There's some nicely patterned fish from the very western part of Africa there. You can see here on the small map, they're all in this area over here. You got Synodontis waterlotii, nicely patterned fish. Moncochielopanii, that's the one that was in the first picture. Synodontis ansordii, and here we've got whatever that is. I don't have that one written on there. Coensis, tori, and nectins, there's 9 Synodontis from that area, and it's probably it's a good area. It's some nicely patterned fish from that area. Carina, this is the most recently described Synodontis, the one in the top there. And Grabianus and Negrita, these are all from the lower Guinean area. Again, so it changes here to Cameroon area. That's kind of the area where a lot of people consider Synodontis to be brown fish with black spots, kind of drab looking fish, and that's a lot of the fish from that area end up like that.
Burger, how large does Carine get?
That's about a 4 or 5 inch fish.
Okay. These are all from rivers, streams?
These are all mostly river fish. They'll be in lakes too in their areas, yeah. Synodontis batesi up in the top corner there. That's a fairly common one in the area. Nicely patterned. These two are really interesting. We've got Puno and Acanthoperca. They both they're only like a 3-4 centimeter long fish, so maybe not even 2 inches. And they're really they're probably that's my holy grail fish right here. And the interesting thing with them also is they just like, how loaches have the opercular spine on their cheek.
Yeah.
These have the males have the same thing here on both species. They're just a tiny little fish. I like all the tiny Synodontis. I'm trying to stick to the little ones. There's a lot of big ones, but I'm trying to stick to the little ones to work with. Then here we've got the various Microsynodontis. That up in the top left corner is Batesi. A lot of Microsynodontis come out exported as Batesi, but they're not. They're usually, this one, the undescribed Nigerian species, or species 1 in planet catfish. And up here we have Microsynodontis poli. This one was there's quite a variety in color with them. This one's almost white, and the males are that's a male, and it's quite long and slender looking, but most of them the top one is kind of spotted, has that spotted pattern, and most of them are like that. So they really have a variety of different patterns on them.
Question on the Microsynodontis lower left
Yeah.
corner. Is that one that with like a balloon belly, is that a species or a pregnant female?
That's a pregnant female. This is the male, this is a pregnant female. I'll show them again later and describe a little bit more about that. And this is a male here as well, with the same species. If you're gonna order Microsynodontis or buy Microsynodontis from anywhere, you'll probably get this species or this species right here. Most likely this one. And they're fairly cheap. Most stores only sell them for a few bucks each.
Burger,
Yes,
may I interrupt you for a second?
you sure can.
After Burger's talk tonight during the auction, there's 2 bags of 10 fish of that species each on the auction table as a club donation.
That's this species here.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
For the micros?
Yeah,
Wow.
they're great little fish.
So, question for you.
Yep.
So you said the majority of them are that undescribed species.
Yeah.
If that's the most popular, why is it still undescribed?
Because they're catching it and exporting it out of Nigeria. It's no scientist has taken the time to look at it and work with it yet.
what's up with that, Ron?
That happens quite a bit. Okay, rinse on.
That's the right attitude.
Okay, so I did have them spawn for me. I had this pair, the bottom corners there, that's a male on the left, female on the right. I had them spawn. I had them in a 15-gallon tank, and I had this little dish in there with some Anubias in it. They spawned down among the roots of the Anubias. But when I discovered that, I showed up. It was first thing in the morning. I was on my way to work. I looked in and I could see some yellow eggs in there. And by the time I went and did something, came back. By the time I came back, this guy here had been rooting around in there, and all the eggs were gone. I have another friend in the UK. After I did my talk there, in the UK they love their little fish, right? So then these are little fish. So every second guy there, after I gave my talk, said, "Oh, I got some of those somewhere in my fish room. I'll dig them out and put them in a tank." And so one guy did, and he made up a bigger trade than that. and he did this similar thing, and he ended up finding fry in the bottom of his tray. He had a bunch of fry in there, but they ended up dying on him. But so they are breedable. If you take them in April and May, during those months, that's about the time when they've been spawning, and that's when their rainy season is as well.
Are their eggs adhesive?
I don't think so. This one here, this fish here actually died on me, and so I took her apart, dissected her, and she actually had eggs in her, and they're big yellow eggs, and they weren't sticky, too sticky or anything like that. I think they just kind of scattered them in there. Okay, moving to a different region, we've got the Nilo-Sudanic region, so up where the Nile is, up where the Nile is, Nile, the Volta, the Lake Chad area. Lake Chad is a big water basin. Senegal River, Gambia River. There's 31 Synodontis up there, 1 Brachysynodontis, 1 Hemisynodontis, and 2 Moccasins. They have a very specific shape to them up there. A lot of the Nilo-Sudanic Synodontis have this very high body, kind of pointed snout, very deep forked caudal fin on them, and usually a big wide the big name of it. Okay. Anyway.
Opercular spine.
What's that?
Isn't it an opercular spine?
No,
that's
no,
soft.
no.
That's soft tissue.
No, that's the
Oh, okay.
I've lost that. So anyway, this fish, Synodontis clarius, by Linnaeus, when he first did our taxonomic system back in the 17 or 1800s, whatever, 1758, it was in the very first booklet. So Synodontis made the first set of, when they started classifying things. Some other Nilo-Sudanic fish, we've got sorex up at the top there. Something's wrong with that. It's not very set right. So anyway, these are all, again, you notice the shape of them. They've got the pointed snout, tall back, high body on them, deeply forked tail. Here we've got your Eucterus, and there's 3 others similar to the Eucterus. You've got your Melanopterus, which is quite similar, except it's almost black. And Sorghii is from the very far west, out in Senegal. And Velifer is brown with big black, nicely patterned spots on it. And then this is a juvenile Eucterus. So they have quite a very different pattern. And they change from that to here when they come out of their juvenile stage. And everybody knows this fish. They get pretty big and pretty beefy. Up there we have a Filamentostis in the top left corner. I believe with the long dorsal, I believe that's there with their more social fish. The Filamentostis is a little bit bitchy when you have them, but if you keep only 2 or 3 together, they're going to rough each other up. But I believe they're more of a, probably in the wild, it's probably more of a schooling fish.
Would that be the same with the chorus too?
That would be the same with the chorus, yeah. Yeah, and a few other species. Any that have the long dorsal on the top would have to be like that. Limiensis is from the Wimi River, down beside Nigeria, and Ocelofer here is, they're pretty, you see these a lot in fish stores, but they're a good fish too. They only get about 7 to 8 inches long. The one problem with them is they love to dig, so they like to get down as low as they can, so they'll dig out under rocks or sticks and stuff. And so you gotta watch it with them because they'll topple things over. They're pretty strong. And that's a Violaceus up in the top right corner. That's a nicely colored fish. And then here we've got, if you want a real good pet fish, we've got Hemisynodontis membranaceus. It's a real character fish. They've got these big membranes on their barbels and a big body. So this fish is about 12-inch fish. This is a Recipinatus beside a big grown Recipinatus, and that's a membranaceus there. But they're good. If you ever want a nice pet fish, they're a good, real good character fish.
What's the common name?
There is no
Yeah,
common.
they don't really have much river dishes.
Have you seen any recently?
Yes, I've seen some in a pond in Rich's place. There's two there. Kind of skinny though. And so going to the Recipinatus and Brachysynodontis, the Brachysynodontis bantam soda. So there, a couple of years ago, me and there's a guy in Finland that we kind of throw pictures back and forth, and we talk about Synodontis and stuff, and we ID fish for each other, and we noticed that a lot of the fish that were coming out called bantam soda were actually coming out with the branches on their barbels here, and that would make it a Recipinatus. Bantam sodas have just a membrane on the barbel, on the maxillary barbel, and the Recipinatus have the branches on there. So that's you're getting pretty picky. The center one is a young Recipinatus that I had. I had a group of those, nicely patterned, little juvenile. And they swim around, all these fish swim around upside down quite often. These are a couple of makukas from the Nile. They're not exported at all. They're found along the reeds and stuff on the Nile River.
Brevis is coming occasionally.
That's it? I've never ever seen it.
Yeah, dolphin got it.
They're
Well,
pretty
they
small.
said it was Brevis. I don't know if it was. I think they imported it.
Okay, going to the eastern drainages. So here we have along the eastern side of Africa, we've got all these little rivers here. There's mountains all along here, and the coastline there just rises real fast right away. So these are all really short rivers. And here's the Rukwa drainage. It's a self-contained little drainage, which rarely flows out to the ocean. Lake Tanganyika is right here, so it's just east of there. All these little rivers here have some really cool little Synodontis in it. Leopardus, Serpentis, Orientalis all have really nice patterns. Rukwaensis is a big fish, just like this Geladensis. They get a red tail. The males get a big red tail, and they turn gray just like that. Rufigiensis and the Thesai mani. Down here in the Lake Rukwa drainage that I talked about, you've got your Ricardoe, which is a small brown Synodontis with big, bold black spots on it. Rukwaensis again, similar to that. Fruluborni is similar to the Afrofisheri. It kind of has that camo type pattern, mottled pattern to it. Some neat fish along the east coast and very rarely exported.
Are there any on Madagascar?
No, none on Madagascar. Madagascar has its own,
We talked about
yeah,
that.
we talked about those ones. But they're not Synodontis, they're on Madagascar. It's a completely different genus. So going down into the southern area, the Zambezi region, we've got Synodontis zambizensis, nigromaculatus, nebulosus, wuznami, macrostigma, macrostoma. Those are two really cool ones, these two. All these fish are small, like 7-8 inches at the most, and really nicely patterned. Synodontis vanderwalli. Nyase, I've got Nyase in with this group just because they're in the south, and it drains into, where they live drains into the Zambezi River. And again, all these fish here, you see they got the large dorsal, and they can be found out in the Okavango area. They can be found in huge schools out there, and they're just swimming around in these great big schools. But they're all great fish, nicely patterned, and they'd be great to have. Nobody exports them though. The odd somebody from Lake Malawi, the distributors, they'll go out into the rivers, usually east of Lake Malawi, or west of Lake Malawi, and they'll pick up macrostoma, macrostigma, and ship those out. But that's all I've ever seen.
What's that dark one with the light spots? The second one from the bottom?
This one?
Yeah.
Femalacanensis.
And it's never
It's a
been
mouthful.
exported?
I've never seen it, never heard of it being exported, any of those, except for macrostigma and macrostoma. Nigromaculatus gets out there.
No, but that one's a nice looking thing.
Yeah, that one, and Vanderwalli is a real nice one too. They're all nice. They got great patterns.
When you say large schools, are you talking hundreds or thousands?
I'm talking thousands, yeah, millions probably.
Where is that one?
Which one?
The one you can.
The
black one.
This friend lives in the Okavango area and down the Zambezi River, about halfway out to the ocean. Okay, and here, so there you got Zambezensis. It's a 16, 17-inch fish up in the top left. Niacea, about 7, 8-inch fish. I've got 3 of those at home. Macrostigma, macrostoma, those were exported last year to Mark Smith. I don't know how many of you might know him. Those are his pictures right there. And those are great fish. I'd love to get a hold of some. And then there we've got Leopardus up in the top left corner, Nigromaculatus. This is a Leopardus as well. And this here is a Vander Wally from Erlen. Erlen has spent quite a bit of time in Africa photographing fish and whatnot.
How big did Vander Wally get?
7, 8 inches. Not huge. That's the great thing. All these southern fish they're a nice size for your average aquarium. To me, a large fish for the average home aquarium is 12 inches. Some people have the 24-inch fish and whatnot in their ponds, but not everybody has big ponds they can keep big fish in. So I call a large fish would be 10, 12 inches. I consider that a large fish for the home aquarium. And then over in Angola, we've got the Kwanza River, and we've got one Synodontis from there, Lassoi, and it's only a 5-inch fish. There's a lot of neat fish, you know, you've seen the Angola barb and whatnot. There's some nice fish from that little drainage, but most of the water from that area ends up going down here towards the Okavango area. So there's not much there. Then moving up to the Congo. Here we have Malabo Pool is here, so that's a big lake on the river. It's a big wide portion of the river, and from there down there's about 100 miles where the water is super fast, super rushing. Melanie Stiasny, she does a great talk on the Congo where she shows films, and they're out there in kayaks and they're checking out how deep the river is and how fast it is, and it's amazing how the currents are in that river. It's a deadly river. And then, so moving up, we've got the middle Congo here. Up top there, we've got the Ubangi comes out over there. The Jaw River. If you're into Synodontis pardalis, the white one with the black spots, it comes from that area. Middle Congo, the upper Congo here, and then you got some drainage from Lake Tanganyika.
Burger, there's Ornatopenis and Longerostris, and I don't believe you mentioned those. And are they Congo fish?
Yes, they are. They're Congo fish, and they're found throughout, like anywhere from here to into the upper Congo. Yeah. And those two, Longerostris and Ornatopenis, are, well, Longerostris is a huge one. It's about a 2.5 foot long Synodontis. So you can imagine if you had those. I've got friends that have them. And there's another big species too.
I think Ornatopenis gets pretty large as well. I think it's like a 20-inch fish.
Ornatopenis doesn't get that large,
really?
like maybe 10, 12 inches at the most. Yeah. So those big ones though would be really hard for their home aquariums to handle because they're so strong. You know, their pectoral fins and everything. They know how to use their pectorals to fight with and to defend themselves. And they're super strong. Super strong. I don't know if you've moved. Have you moved your Alcanaglanus yet?
No.
No. And they're another one.
There was a little itty bitty fish.
Yeah. Mine was 6 inches. I was handling it with my hand, and I got some pretty good gouges in my hand from it. I always move my fish, the bigger ones, with my hands. Whether it's Pecos or Synodontis, it doesn't really matter. Or even Mad Toms, which is risky. So some fish from the Congo, these are some oddballs. We've got Ornatissimus here from the Ubangi, so from the northern part. Pardalis, which is a beautiful fish. It's kind of a really trendy fish right now. And It's kind of like the Synodontis version of the zebra, the hypocystis zebra.
How big do they get?
They get about 8 to 10 inches. Like, they're very similar to an angelicus. Everybody's familiar with Synodontis angelicus from the Congo, and they're the same. They have the same personality. They
I don't understand.
same size. You know, 8 to
They're
12
really
inches.
pleasant.
They're mean, yeah. And they're strong. They're tough. But the most interesting part of this picture is this fish here. This is an undescribed species that's caught alongside the pardalis. And to me, it's more interesting than anything. But they don't retain the yellow color. A lot of fish have come out of the water wild with that olive color. And this one here, after 2 months, it turned brown.
Yeah.
The olive color went away. This is multimaculatus from the northern part, the Ubangi. It's a very small riverine fish, 2.8 inches. And this is the Lefere. I ID'd it as a Lefere, and I figure it comes from the upper Congo. That person had that fish for over 20 years, and so they probably collected it before all the wars and stuff started in the Congo. It's nasty in that area right now to try and collect it.
So how big was that one in the bottom corner?
The bottom left,
Yeah.
that's only a 6-inch fish.
Oh,
Is there
damn.
something wrong with his dorsal?
Yeah, it was damaged.
It was like
Machete attack.
Yeah, Congo machete attack.
Yeah.
So these are other Congo fish that you're probably familiar with. You've got your Angelicus in the top left corner, Robertsi at the top, which is a beautiful little about a 3-inch fish. Dorsimaculatus on the right. Alberti, these are really nice and colorful. Then this is a good example of if you have these, most people, when they have Synodontis, they'll throw them in with cichlids or whatever, and they don't get treated very well. You know, they're just, because they're pretty tough. They are pretty tough, and they can handle the cichlids. But when you keep them in species tanks, you know, if you do species tanks with your plecos and things like that, if you do it with your Synodontis, like here, the head of the Alberti gets a nice golden yellow color on it. They look great, and they get that big tall dorsal on them. Nigriventris, if you keep, I always have at least a dozen of these around. Right now I've got a group of 10 with zebra kutu, which is supposed to be a Nigriventris, but I think it's a different species. If you keep a group of Nigriventris and you keep it in just a species tank, you'll see every color of the rainbow in them if you look closely. They're not just a brown, like most people think Sinos are. They're just a brown fish with spots or something like that. Usually pretty dull or drab, but they're not. You know, they will color up. Shouted is another nice colorful one. The chorus, again with the big long dorsal, so it's probably a social. They are a social fish. They like to be in groups. If you only keep 2 or 3 in a tank, of course they're going to go after each other. But if you keep they ideally should be kept in a big tank in bigger groups, and they'd be awesome. Pleurops is another good one, kind of a real character. Oh, okay, and I was talking earlier about the humeral process. So this little triangular thing on the edge here, on the side of the head, that's like a fingerprint for Synodontis. Every species has its own shape of humeral. So when I'm IDing a fish, first I'll look at the pattern, and then I look right at the humeral. You know, Grishofi has this big, long, pointed one. Nigriventris has this one here. It's a really triangular with a horizontal top, and then a real sharp triangle shape to the humeral. Decorus, some of the other ones from the Congo have the humeral with it's really rounded. It's not sharp at all. So that's like a fingerprint idea for Synodontis, for IDing. Here's some riverine Synodontis. We've got Saloni up in the top left, Camelopardalis. That's not a Camelopardalis, but they have more of a giraffe pattern, which I have some. If you order Salonis, you're bound to get Camelopardalis mixed in with them. Because they're very similar body shape to them. Burchardi, nicely patterned one. They get about 7 inches long, and and they're a great fish. I got this group, and so I got them from Winnipeg, from what's the name out there in Winnipeg?
Spencer?
Spencer, yeah. And they came with Ick, of course, from him. And so I put them in the tank, threw a heater in with it, and before I knew it, the temperature had spiked up to into the 90s, and they all survived that. They're pretty tough fish. They're another great pattern fish. They come from the fast area of the river, that area I was talking about here, below Malabo Pool, where there's 100 miles of really fast water there. It's just the craziest water you ever seen.
That's a juvenile, right? For Shardy?
The Bushardi? No, that one's about 6 inches long, or was.
Oh, you just got it in there.
Yeah. So these are two big ones. Canthameas get about 19.7 inches, 20 inches long. They get this really wicked looking humeral on them with this big spikes. So that this area right here up there, and they get the big spikes on them. They get some wild ones, get some real wild colors to them. Like this one here, that's a part of a wild fish up there, and you can see the yellow color on it. They're big, strong fish. And here's Longarostris. They get 24 inches long, and they're a big, strong, tough fish. And you can imagine getting jabbed by their pectorals, trying to hang on to these things to move them around. It'd be tough.
Have you seen Longarostris in the hobby?
Yes, yeah. Just a couple of years ago, they were brought into North America on the east coast of the U.S., and there was some in the UK as well, for both species. Both species showed up. Going to Lake Tanganyika, there's a lot of synods there. We've got the Ursace on the top left corner. It used to be called Dontai. But Dontai is a totally different fish, a one of. It's monogeneric. Not monogeneric, it's just a monospecific fish. Just a big brown fish is supposed to be what Dontai is, but that's a Ursace, and the right is granulosus. In the center is Grandiops, and Grandiops are often confused with multipunctatus. Most people, if they have multipunctatus, when they say they have multipunctatus, they'll have Grandiops. And I saw the difference today. True multis are huge compared to the Grandiops. Grandiops are only 3-4 inches long. Multipunctatus are 7-8 inches long as adults. And you can tell the main way to tell the difference, if you look at the pectoral fin on them and take a photo or just grab them and look at them, you got to count the one hard spine on the outside of the pectoral, and count one species, I think it's Grandiops, has 7, and Multipunctatus has 8 soft rays on the fin. So there's a definite way to tell the difference between them. And another difference is the length from the eye to the snout. That distance is different as well. When you see them together, it's quite noticeable the difference between the two. And same goes for Lucipinnis and Petricola. They get confused often. If you need to know more about them, the differences, I have an article on Planet Catfish, discerning how to discern them. Lucipinnis has the spots on the head, a little more spaced apart than the Petricola. Petricola has lots of small spots on the head and very thick. And Petricola has the spots on the body are usually smaller than the eyeball and fairly well patterned. And here, Lucipinnis, the spots are bigger than the eyeball, but and very random and not clear. So I've taken, just a couple of months ago, I went down to Spokane and I sorted a whole tank of about 100 Petricolas and Lucipinnis, so I can tell the difference now. But it's difficult at first. And they also have what's called an axillary pore. I'll talk about that a bit later, but Petricolas have an axillary pore, Lucipinnis do not. So that's the definite difference between the two as well. So there's definitely two species there. A lot of people still don't believe they're different species, but they are. And there even could be hybrids out there because people have thrown them both together. Okay, this is Synodontis pauli. I had a group of them, and what happened with me is they come in this way as juveniles with that pattern. The males, you end up with a big, dark, dominant male, grouchy looking thing, and they get almost black. People have asked me, you know, I've got this group of fish, and I think I got 2 or 3 different species, because they all start changing different colors. This is a subdominant male, gets a little more of that golden color to it, and they look really great when they do that. Here we have it's a couple of females, and again, the subdominant female, so she was the lowest on the totem pole, but she had the nicest color. Nice golden color to it. Very, very pretty fish. And the other ones got more just the brown color with the black spots. But I noticed with yours are all dark. You have that
Mine are
group.
pretty dark.
All of them.
Mine are all dominant.
Yeah. They take after you, eh? Okay, so that's the principal bioregions. Moving on to just various things to having to do with Synodontis. So you'll see a lot of, you know, over the years I've seen albino grishaffe, leucistic Synodontis bat and soda, leucistic shouted eni. This one here was in Germany, and it turned this white, and it was perfectly healthy. There was nothing wrong with it. It just went from wild color to white like that. And I'm sure you've all seen the Negrita gold. So they breed them with this bright yellow color. Sometimes they're almost white like this, really pale. But the true Negrita gold looks great in the bright yellow. And this was just one that I picked up that had a nice pattern on it that I wanted for photographing in my tanks. And I've still got that fish, and I got to take pictures because the brown has transferred up to the top of the body, and all around the dorsal is brown now, and the rest of the body is yellow. Excuse me for a moment here.
Oh, do you say that they are native species in Germany?
No. That's where they were bred.
Oh, okay.
They're native to Nigeria.
So most of these breedable in captivity, or?
Yes and no. Mostly they're hormone bred, the ones you see. And but shouted eni is if anything has been accidentally bred the most, it's been shouted eni. And that's about it for this group. Negrita has been bred in tanks. You can do it. I think they are breeding in our tanks. We just don't catch them on time. So. Sexing them, a lot of people like to vent their fish when they sex them. I don't find that very helpful. My eyes aren't that good. So on the left is a male, and on the right is a female. What I like to do is I like to get a nice shot from the side, and you see the papillae here, little penis sort of looking thing, and that tells me that's a male. Male in good shape will have that. If they're not in very good shape, it won't be developed like that. But if they've been fed well and in good shape, they'll develop that.
And this is all the time, not just mating time?
That's for any Synodontis, yeah.
But it's all the time,
Yeah.
not just when they're...
Yeah.
Hanging down.
There's a closer shot, same thing. So this is a male of that little Microsynodontis, undescribed Nigerian. You can see it's got the papillae all over the head, and the ventral and the anal fins are fairly close together. It's got the sexual papillae here. And then you compare that to the female. And that's definite female, right?
What was your first 10?
Big belly on her. It's got the papillae on the head as well. The ventral and the anal fins are much closer together. And it's not quite as colorful as the male was.
Yeah, he's stunning.
Those are great examples of a male and a female over the whole, all the different Synodontis type fish.
How big was it again?
This male was maybe 2 inches.
Is that about mostly max out?
Yeah. Yeah. The poli, the other one, the spotted ones that I showed before, they get almost 2.5, 3 inches, and the males get really long and thin. But they're all these Synodontis are great. If you like small fish, they're excellent. They love to hide though. They hide, and then when it's feeding time, they come darting out. And they're pretty voracious little eaters. And here, so this is a Burchardi, and what they have is they have this ridge around the vent area, and I think what that does is it helps them in their hydrodynamics. They're from fast-flowing rivers, so it probably helps them sit in the water properly. I'm not really positive, but I'm just guessing with that. But it helps with their hydrodynamics. Going from there to, this is a Soloni. Again, you can see the same thing, how big the ridge is around there. Sometimes it's hard to sex these because they do have that ridge and you don't quite see the papillae there. This is an adult male Synodontis shouted ani. And a lot of times you see them, they get kind of dull colored. It's because they have all this here called epithelial projections, and it's similar to odontodes on plecos. And it's just gets this fuzz all over them. This one's got the papillae all over the head and stuff too, saying it's a mature male. This guy was crazy. He tried to take on a full-grown Angelicus, and he paid for it. He didn't live very long. And here again, there's the epithelial projections here, all over its body. You can see there's even air bubbles trapped within it. Feeding Synodontis is pretty easy. They're opportunistic. They eat more or less anything. The ones from the Lake Tanganyika like shrimp. I feed them a lot of shrimp. It's quite entertaining. To throw, I use just the frozen shrimp from the grocery store, the uncooked stuff, and I'll throw in I'll shell it and then throw it in, and they chase each other around for forever trying to get it. But they eat anything from most Synodontis will eat anything from shrimp to veggies. I feed them zucchini and whatnot, just like the plecos. You just throw it in there, and they get in there and they take big chunks out of it.
So, question on the feeding part with the use of local, store items. What is their natural?
There's a lot of shrimp in the lakes. And Lake Tanganyika has a lot of shrimp in it.
As far as what about the anything like vegetation-wise?
For most Synodontis in the lakes, there's not much for vegetation. They'll go and eat algae too. Scrape the algae off the rocks and whatnot, and comb through it. For most Synodontis, if you look at any of the studies on feeding, a high percentage of their diet, like 60%, would be vegetable matter, like plant matter.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. I feed veggies to all my Synodontis. I use the Rapace, the green.
Soylent Green?
Soylent Green, yeah. And I find it works really well with the Synodontis, all of them. I use it as a staple. But they'll, for veggies, I'll feed them zucchini. I'll feed them green beans. They'll eat just about anything once they get used to it and know that you're putting it in there for them.
Algae wafer?
Yep, they'll eat all that. Tank mates for Synodontis. The biggest thing I say is don't put them with territorial cichlids. They're competing for the same space on the bottom of the tank, so it's not good. Here I had a pair of Stadocranus, and they were spawning, and this Angelicus was trying to get down, knew they were spawning down there, and was trying to get down to the eggs, but couldn't. By the next day, this tank had 6 Angelicus in there. By the next day, this little pair of Stadocranus, that was their first brood, had all those Angelicus pushed to the other end of the tank, and was keeping them there. The Angelicus were so scared of them that they would bring their babies around, the cichlids would bring their babies around, and they'd swim around the Angelicus and they wouldn't move. So they're not, most Synodontis aren't as evil as people think them to be. The territorial cichlids are out. I recommend, mouth brooding cichlids are a little more, they don't get territorial, and if they spawn, they might get a little spot that they protect for a couple hours of the afternoon on a day, but they don't protect an area all the time. Over here we've got Mystis leucophacus, Asian upside down catfish. I've seen them advertised as Synodontis, and they're not. But they're very similar, and they will compete for the same space. They look very similar. These with an Angelicus, they'll fight because they're both dark and look like each other. Plecos, it's not good. Plecos and Synodontis again compete for the same space. They like caves, and Synodontis like caves, Plecos like caves, so they compete for the same spaces. A great fish to go with them. I had two of these. These are out of the Congo. It's Chiloglanus congicus. It's about a 3-4 inch fish, and it's a very active little, not really an algae eater. They eat all kinds of stuff. Anything I threw in there, they would go and tackle it. But they're an awesome fish, and they're very easy to take care of. They're anything out of the Congo River. The main body of the Congo River is quite easy to care for. Because they're very, they can take different water conditions and whatnot. They're pretty tough. Other good fish for Synos, Congo tetra, or anything in that family, that body shape, it'd be good. You get a group of 12 or 18 of Congo tetras in with 4 to 6 Synodontis uterus with the tall dorsal fin. It would be an awesome tank. These would be great. I just got some of these here, a Microtenopoma. These aren't Ansorgi, but I got the Ansorgi, and they'll be great with. I'm going to put them with my Microsynodontis. Cynopanchax buccabanus. These are out of Uganda. Those were collected by Jules and Shane from Planet Catfish, and Jules, when I was at Jules' place, he gave me some of those. Paralia pellucida in the center is another nice schooling fish along with Paratropius bovie. They're great, very active, and they do great in schools.
Burger?
Yes.
Another shameless plug, everybody. There's 10 buckeye on the table too.
That's this one here.
Yeah, another donation.
Keep them together in a group. And if you find they start dropping to the bottom and just sit there and shimmer, you got to get them out, got to get them eating. They're not happy there. And if they're doing that, they'll start dying off one by one quite quickly. So you got to have them moving around. And these turn into real little bullets at feeding time. If they're happy, they're great fish, and they get up and they start scooting around the tank like crazy. So weapons of Synodontis. So what they use to protect themselves. The first thing you'll see is everybody's done this. When you're trying to take pictures of fish, this is what you see mostly. You see their flight response, they just turn and take off. They've got things like the head on the head, they've got a hardened process. So this shell on top of the head it's all very hard and armored. And it's very protective of their head. They've got this 3-point defense, so their pectorals and their dorsal, they can lock them out and for protection. And so you can imagine if you're trying to swallow one of them tail first, because they've turned around there, and you're finally nabbed it, and trying to swallow that, it would be a little hard on the throat. And they also know how to use it for offense. So here we've got some man-made weapons, African Kazinga, all spiky, shark-toothed weapons from the Pacific Islands. And here we've got nature's pectoral spine. So that is from Mapuchiala penii. It's only 11 millimeter little spine on the pectoral fin, but that's why they get tangled in nets. They've got all these sharp points here on both sides of the spine, and plus that one on the end there. Yeah, it hurts. This for comparison, I grabbed just a needle. This is a needle that was about 1.25 inches long, nice and sharp, and so you can see how dull the needle is. And that's the end of the spine. It's a lot sharper than that needle. That's pectoral ophicyloni. And here you can see, when this one's a live fish, you can see the mucus along there, along the spikes and stuff. So also when you get jabbed, you also get that mucus inside your wound. And that's why it gets infected. And this is
Is
from,
it venomous or just full of,
well, these aren't venomous. The,
just full of
some of the Tanganyikan ones have venom running along to the tip. And those Tanganyikan ones, they're when they do that, they stick their pectoral out, and when a fish bites down on them, they bite down on the little Tanganyikans, and they get the venom in their mouth, and it makes them hold their mouth open. They get kind of paralyzed with their mouth wide open. And it's not very comfortable for them, and they learn to leave them alone. That's why all the Tanganyikan ones are spotted, because they all copy that as a warning sign to other fish not to try and eat them. And that's an Angelica. It's a very strong spine. That's only probably about 1.5 inches, 2 inches long, but it's very thick, very strong, and very pointed. And they really know how to use them. If you see a fish and it's got spots like this is a spot that got infected a little bit. This is a polli that got punctured by another one. That's a puncture from the pectoral spine. They get up. What they do is they get up beside each other and they try and jab each other. And so sometimes they'll even kill each other.
Do you have to treat that, or will it heal on its own?
I don't. With Synodontis, you just give them clean water and lots of good food, and they'll heal up, no problem. I don't usually use medicines on them.
Are they prone to infections and stuff, like ick and other stuff?
Not really prone, no. They get them, you know, but you give them clean water and they'll heal up. They heal up from some amazing stuff. I've seen some people that have had some pretty bad, Synodontis in very bad shape, skinny, and like not fed very well, and they come back. Just gotta give them some time.
What about internal parasites? They come from the wild?
Yeah, they could. I think you should treat. You know, if you bring some wild caughts in, treat them.
No more than anything else.
Yeah, no more than anything else. Yeah. I don't think the pleco, like a lot of like Ingo Seidel, I think you've had him here recently. He likes to say if you get plecos, put them in, get them in to a tank, and get high heat in with them. But that wouldn't work with them. Especially the Lucipennis and Petricola, they don't like high heat. They don't like big changes in their water conditions. So here, I was talking about the axillary pore earlier. Here, this is a Grandiops, but they also have the axillary pore. A pore is the hole. Axillary is the armpit. Kind of, that's the way it goes. And inside the hole, you can see the actual axillary gland. That creates the toxins that they use to protect themselves.
Wow.
And so when you have the difference between Petricola and Lucipennis, Petricola will have that, Lucipennis will not. The Petricola one is really hard to spot. It's very tiny, but they also have that. Lucipennis doesn't have that. Lucipennis has this here. This is a Lucipennis. It's just smooth in here. There's no hole, but they do have the axillary gland inside, and they have the venom that comes out through the pectoral spine. And if you see a side shot of the pectoral spine, you can see all the little where it moves through.
Like a hypodermic needle?
I don't know if it's like that, but
Well, what's it move through then?
well, they've got little like veins or whatever that takes it through.
Is it a groove?
No, it's like a blood vessel or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a venom vessel.
Yeah, a venom vessel. So this is the Moncocheilopenia that I was photographing with the needle, and this is the dorsal spine. It's just a little dorsal spine, but very sharp again, to that same needle comparison. On the left is an Alberti, so that's a spine that's about 2 inches long. And this is a Nigraventus, so just your regular upside down catfish here. Using teeth as weapons. All Synodontis have these kind of teeth where they're made for scraping or combing through the outfall. the algae and whatnot on the rocks and plants and stuff. But they also can use them quite deadly. This is a salone that was left in with them, and they'll scrape the body of the other fish. This was left in with an angelicus, and it went after it. They'll also come to the head and they just scrape at the head. They sit over top and they'll scrape it, and scrape it quite raw. Those are all those marks are teeth marks. And these are some of the people that have lent me photos to put in this. Most of the photos were my own, about 75%, but of course I wanted to get it all right and get photos from various people.
Ted Judy does.
Yeah. Although. Okay, so thank you for listening to me. I hope. Any questions?
So is there a giant upside down cat?
Yeah. I wouldn't say giant, but yeah. What I
Well,
showed
the
you.
pet stores market him that way.
How about membranaceous?
Yeah. Well, membranaceous is only about 12 inches, 12, 14 inches. But these two here, I showed. Yeah, yeah.
You passed them.
Oh, sorry.
Sleepy.
But are they, they're not upside down types though, right?
Well, no, but a lot of people call Synodontis upside down.
Oh, I see.
They're all grouped the same, but no, they're not. They're not. These are as giant as it gets. And then there's another species that gets like 60 centimeters, so that's 2 feet. Yeah. But they're not exported. These are the only ones exported. Yes, sir.
So I've heard some people talk about the difference between lake fish and river fish. Is there a particular body shape that goes to one and the other?
No, it's all about the drainages. You know, if they're in a river drainage, and they'll be, you know, as they get bigger, the bigger fish move into the bigger bodies of water. Whether it's the bigger, wider river, deeper river, or the lakes.
So there's no particular like body shape that says this is a riverine sign up and that's a lake.
No, except for when you're talking Brochardi and Salona, the long, slender ones.
Okay.
Those come from the fast. Yeah, no, there's not really anything that discerns that. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
These catfish like cold water?
No, they're tropical. And I've never kept them below. I usually keep all my Synodontis at 74 degrees. They go lower than that, they don't like it. Okay, good. Thank you.